didn't really understand that it was a very deep science. Of course, no one around me knew what I was talking about. And I kept saying, we're going to heal with light, and we're going to do this. And oh, yeah, okay, Mr. E.T.,
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after Ken Ring and some other people got interested in me that I was actually able to talk to scientists and first molecular biologists, and then when I started talking with quantum biologists, the field of quantum biology, which is looking at your nuclear state, your atoms as biology, because you are first and foremost made of atoms. And it was there that all of a sudden they go, we know what he's talking about, and then it took a little while to get people to start doing a little bit of funding and okay, let's give this guy a chance. But once we started building prototypes and stuff, it seemed that I had hit it right on the money. From the first experiments, and by the way, every story I'm telling you has been videotaped. I'm one of the most documented people in the world. It's been videotaped by multiple cameras and/or audio taped for intellectual property rights. And so this began my course. I was given a second chance to live when many, many great people, greater than me, weren't for some reason. That's between them and the light.
And their life sometimes, Mellen, cut short at even a young age.
Mm-hmm. And I was given a second chance, and I had wasted the first life I had. And so I was given a second chance, and I was determined to work on giving others second chances, because there's always a second chance. And the one thing that really got me focused is that after I survived, and after I left hospice and went home and was later tested several months later, because at first I didn't want to be tested. I didn't want to know. I was feeling okay,
right,
and I didn't want to know, but I was talked into getting tested again by the same doctors. And I remember the doctor coming in and putting up the second scan, and he said, well, this is very interesting. And I said, what is it? And he says, well, there's no trace now. And I said, it's a miracle. He said, no, we call these spontaneous remissions. And I said, well, what is that? And he said, well, we really don't understand, but there's a lot of evidence. In fact, he said, in medical records, there's every known human condition has had a spontaneous remission, from adults growing new teeth to incurable diseases disappearing to MS to blind people seeing again. And they can't explain it. They think it has something to do with the immune system, blah, blah. But as he was, because he showed the scan, and he said, you see here's the cancer. And had we irradiated or operated, you would always have a lesion. This would always be noticeable in every scan the rest of your life. He said, look here, there's nothing. It
was just gone.
Yeah, this is just one of those cases where it was a complete spontaneous remission. And I said, I thought at that moment, what is the physics of this? Because if it really happens in flesh, there is a physics to it that we need to understand.
I agree.
And if this happens in every known condition, then I want to spend the rest of my life studying this.
Regardless of why it went away, there is a physics or a science behind it.
And so for me, God's magic is physics. The rest is hocus pocus. And if this magic is around us and in us every day, and we don't even notice that everything about us is magic. In fact, this entire universe, if you listen to the experts in different periods of time, is impossible. Everything that we have and we see is impossible, and here we are. So the physics is the pure magic, and I see it that way. And so I was very, very lucky to, a few years later, to have met a man. I was introduced by a bookstore owner to a man who turned out to be a billionaire. And he and I became very good friends. And we would sit around chatting, do you think this is real? Do you think that's real? And he would say, why don't you go find out? So for the next 7 years, I was able to travel the world, carte blanche.
He funded these missions. Huh?
And would put doctors to go with me, and I would take multiple cameras, and I was looking for anything that would claim to be regeneration, and that was from technologies to healers to manifestors, anybody.
Was he doing this to get answers for himself, Mellen, through you?
I think I think so. I was. He was rather old at the time, and he funded me until he died, and then the family wasn't interested. But that got me started, and that got people to pay attention to me. And but it was a marvelous time in which I've seen miracles. I've seen miracle workers, and the inconsistency of that. And my idea was, even if you're a greatest healer in the world, how many people can you see a day? And that most people in the world will never take spirulina. Most people will not meet the Pope. Most people will never ever meet the Dalai Lama. So what about the rest of us? And so it wasn't a straight line. Let me tell you, it was kind of a zigzag line. But eventually, with the help of having some think tanks and some brilliant people saying, you're on to this and this is what it is, I ended up in what's called the field of phototherapy and tissue optics.
What is that?
Well, advanced. I'm in a very advanced form of phototherapy, which phototherapy's really caught on. But when I was first into it, it wasn't much at all back in the old days. It's very well understood now. It's very popular, in fact, with anti-aging and baby boomers, actually, for photofacials and things like that.
Okay, all right.
Getting rid of wrinkles and things like that. But there's so much more that you can do with this, and I was blessed to have the kind of funding over the years that was not venture capital, that wasn't forcing me to do anything. So I spent 12 years in just pure and research, and will be the rest of my life, without ever having to produce a product. But we produced many prototypes. We did a lot of testing, and then finally, just this in late 2008, we have begun to put out products based on my discoveries. And it's in the field of phototherapy because this is what Walter Russel taught me. It's what Darius Denshaw taught me also, is that there's so much you can do with light. Besides shine it on people, it can have specific enzymatic effects on the human body. I actually patented a way to recharge the human body like a battery, because to a quantum biologist, we are a wet cell battery. And basically, if you don't have the right electron charge in the body, your cells are not strong enough to regenerate. And you tend to run out of what we call organ reserves at about 40 years old. That's what your mother gave you.
Yeah.
And that's when aging, what we call aging, starts to show. In quantum biology, we call it entropy.
Even though it probably starts even earlier, doesn't it?
It can, depending on your life, and how you challenge your body, and of course genetics and things like that have something to do with it. And since then, I've really become quite a studier and expert in who lives beyond 100 and why, and it may surprise you, and it's one of my more popular lectures that I give. But putting that together with how do you get the body to go back into regeneration, we have done spectacular work, and we're just now releasing a series of products and to the public. And we chose to, although I've done a lot of medical work, we chose to go into the wellness and spa industry first, because honestly, that's where most of the healing's going on right now. It's in wellness centers and spas. And chiropractic offices is where most of the healing is going on. There's not a lot of healing going on in hospitals, and I'm not putting anybody down or anything, but I think we know that's the truth.
No, they don't. They don't seem to cure the problem.
Most of our diseases are stress-related, one way or the other. Environmental stresses, life stresses.
Economic, yeah. They're
economic,
being
too, can ruin your health. And then also the part of the aging process is that the hormones stop modulating, and so the first things to go, and you notice this as you begin the aging curve, is the first thing to go is all the feel-good stuff, the serotonin, melatonin, the human growth hormone. And suddenly the shine comes off of life. You don't feel connected anymore. You have moods and depressions, and this is a natural part of aging. But the good news is there's a lot that can be done about this. And so with my form of phototherapy, this is what we have focused on. We can give you the equivalent of a full night's sleep in 30 minutes. And it's only when and nobody's sleeping now, young or old, and that's because the stresses of life are 24/7 now. And what most people don't realize, that the biggest pollution in the world is noise pollution. It's not what's coming out of chimneys. Noise pollution does a whole lot to your biology. Just because you've tuned it out, it's like, if you live next to an expressway, you tend to tune it out, but your biology can't. It's always reacting to it.